Hey, hello everyone, and Happy New Year. I'm Pete Bickford, and this is the ComicBase Livestream. Welcome to the first show of 2025. We are finally caught up to our model year. So, for a number of years now, I think close to, gosh, what's 8 or 9 of them now. We've stopped saying ComicBase version 14, 15, and so forth because we realized after a while you just don't know what that means anymore. 15 is better than 14 probably, but is it the current version? Is it not? And we did what everyone else in the software industry is doing, and we started calling things just ComicBase 2020, whatever the year was. And luckily, as things would have it, when we finally got up to ComicBase 2020, we were actually at version 20 of the program, so it all kind of worked out, which I think means that we're going to be sticking on that yearly release cycle, come hell or high water, because typically people would come and say, like, yeah, I'm running ComicBase 22, and it's like, you're thinking, 2022 or ComicBase, I'm running ComicBase 15. It's like 2015 or version 15. It's like, so we are finally at ComicBase 2025, which we get an early start on. Typically we try to ship somewhere in the neighborhood of Comic-Con for historical reasons, and we've now rolled into 2025. So anyway, Happy New Year, guys. We hope your Christmas was terrific, and I'm gonna say ours was, and hope your New Year is going very well. It's it's started off with a bang, or several bangs, as they would have it, sometimes with also various shots fired. But 2025 promises to be interesting. 2024 certainly was. It's a year, I gotta admit, I'm probably not going to remember all that fondly as far as how much fun it was to be going through it, but I think it's going to be one of those years that we look back on and say, like, yeah, remember when we did that big change about that thing? And I think it's going to be one of these years that we bookmark a lot in terms of, like, oh yeah, that's the year when kind of everything changed. And so what I want to do on the show today, if you guys will indulge me a bit, is I'd like to go for a little bit of what we did last year, just so forth. I want to talk a little bit about what we want to do for the next year, and then I want to get very much into your questions and tech tips and so forth. There's a bunch of things that have come up, and I want to get on those as soon as possible. Please, if you would, put your questions to @ComicBaseTV in the chat on YouTube, and I will hit as many of these as I possibly can as we go. And hopefully everything's coming through on the stream okay. Unfortunately, it's an odd day for us right now, so I didn't have the services of our long while producer, Greg Hecht. So we're hopefully the sound is okay, the focus is somewhat okay, and you can hear me okay. So we'll take it from there. So anyway, and that by there, the way is Dodger. One of these days I'm going to work up a doggy camp for him and get him onto the show, because that's some serious clicks right there. All right, guys. So before we get into the main thing, please, if you would, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us a lot. And certainly if you leave a comment, it helps in terms of getting the things out into the YouTube algorithm as far as transmitting that on. I have a number of asks for you today, and I don't normally do this, but I will this time. First of all, is we're trying to reach out on X, formerly known as Twitter. I think you're required to say that. But we have the Comic Software, @Comic Software, or if you just look for ComicBase, you will find us. But there was an ancient account which we can't seem to get them to dislodge from someplace in the Netherlands, an old fan site called ComicBase. I think dates from the 90s. It's been abandoned for ages. So we're working with them to get them to give that one up. But in the meantime, if you would give us a follow at Comic Software on X, that what we're trying to do here is we're trying to put out a lot of little announcements throughout the week to kind of let you know things that are interesting, of note, that people are asking us questions about and so forth. And so we're trying to keep it kind of high signal to noise in terms of giving you interesting stuff about ComicBase, maybe things you didn't know how to do the program and so forth, quick little tips, things we find interesting in the comic industry and so forth. Some of the things that we did on our X account, and I'm going to not go through them in great detail here because I want to encourage you guys to follow us over on X, is we did a review of not only the last several years of how variants have been going, but we also looked at how comic prices have changed over the years, and what that means in terms of inflation and the overall rate of how expensive it is to be a comic collector in the years going forward. It's one of these things that I think it's kind of neat that we have got actual real data to play with, which is also one of my kind of, I don't know if I call it a pet peeve, but it's definitely got my back up a little bit as far as how little real data there is on offer from the comic industry. But as far as what people have been publishing, we know pretty much the whole schmear since since the beginning of comics at this point, but we definitely know what they've been putting out as far as content in the coming years, and so we can map out how those trends go. And the trend lines, I think, are actually really interesting. So have a look for us over on X, and if you guys have other questions about them, happy to talk to them in the chat as well. All right, so other things going on. Our holiday sale is still on for a few more hours. It goes till midnight Central. And if you haven't updated, or if you are looking at getting ComicBase for the first time, now is a terrific time to do it. We can save you. I'm not sure what the percentages are these days, because we've actually made the base pricing very competitive and other things. But the sale is going to be the lowest prices you're going to see for pretty much the whole year. And so that's still going on until midnight. Please check that out. If you go to comicbase.com, and just click on the main news item there, will give you all the prices and so forth. One thing that we are doing, which is new for us these days, is that we're giving you, in addition to whatever the sale price is, if you're renewing a existing subscription, you can save yourself an additional 5% if you just check the box for signing up for auto renew, which basically means we don't have to bug you next year when your subscription's about to renew. We just kind of like go ahead and let that run, and it saves you 5%. So it's a little something, and we can all save money these days. So let's go for it. All right, other things that are going on. There are, of course, the big news that we slipped in at the last part of the year was we rolled out brand new Express Plus and Professional Plus versions of the program. For that matter, we added a lot of stuff to the free version, which is just amazing. What this is all about, and let me go to my slides on this one, because this is a graph that is worth going through one more time. Let me go ahead and pull that up right here. So if you guys look at this, this is the growth in variance over time on the U.S. comic book market, and it's demented. I don't know another name for it. So you see, this goes back to about 1935, and typically that line variance well under 10%. I mean, well under 10% of the market. And when there was a variant, it was typically something like a regional price difference, or a test market of a new price. Sometimes it would have, Canadian markings on something, or it would be put out under the Whitman imprint versus the Gold Key imprint, stuff like that. But starting around 1990, if you look at the graph, you've got two lines here. One is the total number of comic books published, and the other one is the percentage of those comics that are variants. Starting around 1990, it absolutely exploded. It went up because people basically figured out that we can take the same contents and we can publish it with different covers at very minimal expense to ourselves. All we have to do is print up a new cover, and we already paid the writers and everything for what's inside the covers, and we can just go ahead and sell the same comic book again. Sometimes we can even ask more money for it. And, this trend has been going absolutely nuts. It slacked off actually a little bit a couple of years ago, but then went roaring right back we actually got to the point now where we ran the numbers for the year. As it turns out, 88.7% of all comic books published in 2024 were a variant of one sort or another. This to me is absolutely psychotic. So what you're saying is basically it's almost like 9-to-1 as far as how many comic books were published that weren't a variant versus the ones that were. And we've really reached the point where for most comic books published by Marvel and DC today, there is no regular version anymore. So it doesn't have to be a number 1 to get this kind of treatment. Or it could be number 5, it could be number 12. Just any comic book in there. Typically, you'll publish it with at least 1 or 2 different covers that are considered the main cover. So there's no regular cover anymore. And so everything's a variant. And this is, I gotta say, for me personally, very stressful as a collector. I don't like it. It makes it I don't know. It robs me with that kind of connection of history, of feeling like, oh yeah, I remember this one. This is, we can all remember what did Hulk 181 look like? What did Spider-Man #1, from or Spider-Man #1, either Amazing Spider-Man or the 1990 version. What did those look like? Spider-Man 129, Amazing Spider-Man 129. These are classic covers. Captain America 100. We all remember those things. And when we're thinking about a very specific cover image. When it comes in 20 different flavors, it's really kind of hard to have that same connection to your own heritage as far as comics go. And even though some of the covers are very, very pretty, it's a lot. So I'm going to say I personally would prefer if publishers in the new year, if you guys could ramp the heck back on this one, because it's wearing us out, at least speaking for myself. And honestly, speaking from the comic industry, as far as we can get any sense of the numbers, it's wearing a lot of people out. And certainly raising the cost is to be any kind of collector these days. But the other thing it's doing, and this is something that I'm going to credit the gentleman who gave me a call several weeks before Christmas, where he just literally was just asking, hey, I'm using the free version. I'm trying to get a sense of the program, and I'm trying to find, my copy of Spider-Man #1 from the one from 1990, the Todd McFarlane one. I thought, oh yeah, I remember that was hard, because back then it was notable because there were 5 different versions of that cover. There was the bagged and the unbagged. There was so the newsstand and the direct market, and then they did some of them that were green covered and some of them were black colored, and then there was the platinum version that nobody has. So yeah, that was one that, like, if you had like a 1991 Overstreet, you were trying to look that one up, that one had like one of the larger entries of any listing in the entire book. Now it's nothing, but I thought, okay, yeah, I understand why the guy needs a little extra help on that one. But one thing I had not understood is they'd actually gone back over time. Marvel had gone back, and specialty publishers and things like that, and had reprinted like in another like 15 covers of that same old 1990 comic book over the years. So now, without a cryptogram or without a decoder ring on the whole thing, you got no chance of finding out which one's which. Now, if you guys are signed up for the ComicBase newsletter, you got a note from us a couple days ago where I went over this. But basically, I said, look, the only tools you have at your disposal are barcodes, which, thank God, they introduced in summer of 1992 is when they really became universal in the comic industry, because Diamond Comics, which control basically all comic publishing, put their foot down and said, look, if you don't have a proper barcode on this thing, we're not publishing it. It's just, we can't manage the stock anymore. We're driving our warehouse guys nuts. Everyone's upset. So you're putting a barcode on, or you can go through somebody else, which basically meant that everyone started putting barcodes on. And better yet, they started putting good barcodes on. They're the ones with the 5-digit, what they're called supplementals, the small digits at the far right of the barcode, which give you a unique number for the issue number, the variant, and the printing. Now, granted, it's getting a little messy when you start having 26, variants of the same thing, but the idea is still, intact. So those help a lot. And so if you do have a barcode scanner, and I strongly suggest you get a barcode scanner if you don't, it does take most of the problem out of being able to log your comic book collection, because then if you're looking at a copy of just whatever comic book, it can be Green Lantern, is it the 6th series, the 7th series, the 8th, whatever else. I'm looking at a copy of number 5, I can tell that much from the whole thing, but is the A, the B, the C, the whatever cover. With a barcode scanner, a lot of times I don't need to worry about too much. I just take the comic book, I take the scanner, I go bleep, it immediately takes me to the right entry in ComicBase, and so a lot of the problem goes away automatically. But the thing that really, really, really helps, being able to look at a darn picture of the thing. And so after, I think, 15 or 16 years of having a product line broken down along the idea of, we have different levels of power in the base program, and then we have this very, very cool upper end edition, which is the archive edition, was the first one that was able to use Blu-ray and DVDs to show you just crazy amounts of covers. It was, think about those Marvel Masterworks editions or the Gerber catalogs. We thought we can do this like times a bajillion, because we have this incredible amount of digital storage, and because we spent 30 some years of our lives doing nothing but scanning covers and trying to keep up with the comic market. It's absolutely mad quest we've been doing over the last, we now just actually turned 33 years of publishing ComicBase. But because we have this massive art library and we finally had a media to put them on, we could start putting these out in a very special edition. Well, that was great for us. And it's great for all of you who've had the archive edition all these years, because then you had the photo reference to go along with any comic book that you happen to be looking at. But one thing that typical users didn't have is, typically we would only have enough space on like a CD or a DVD, the regular editions, to show you just the number 1 issue. So you knew you were at the right series, so this is the Justice League 3rd series or something. But we trusted that once you'd found that one, that you just go down and say, okay, it's issue number 5. Okay, got it. And you could put it in. Well, that's great as long as there's only one issue number 5. When it turns out every single issue of every single series going back for a decade or more has got multiple copies of every darn thing, that's hard. And so we made a very difficult and it took a lot of work and it took a lot of scrambling, but we made the decision to start including photo reference thumbnails. So they're quite small, but they're big enough so you can see what covers what. And we decided we're going to include them with every edition of ComicBase, whether it's the archive or not. We found a way to, because we've been improving our digital delivery systems over the years and the way that we can, get content out to people. We basically put it starting with ComicBase free, the demo version of ComicBase. We include well over 100,000 images for all of Marvel, all of DC, not just the issue number ones, but every single issue, every single variant that we've ever seen. And we put that out along with the program so that just, if you're ever caught in that situation as the gentleman was before, Christmas, you saying, okay, I'm looking for the right cover of Spider-Man. You can actually just go down to Spider-Man and there's all the covers. And it's like, oh yeah, it's that one right there, whether it's got a barcode or not. Now, if it does have a barcode, it's great because now that's pops up. You can print it on labels. You can print out reports. It's terrific photo reference and so forth. Now, granted, in the lower end versions of things, the covers are quite small, so they're not beautiful. I'm not going to say they are works of art. So if you start blowing them up greatly, you'll see like, yeah, this is a quite small picture, but it's enough so you can figure out what you're looking at, so you can tell the covers apart from each other. And of course, when you have the archive edition, and we encourage you to get the archive edition, at that point we can serve it up to you at either 1080p or 4K resolution. So at that point we can use all the power of your computer and all the power of our ability to deliver these things to you, as well as give you new covers as they come out every week. So it's a complete revolution in our product line, and we did that one as a free upgrade, and we just did that a couple weeks ago. If you haven't done it yet, please stop everything you're doing right now. Put this live stream on hold. Go out, say check for updates. You'll see if there's ComicBase 25.5. You can download it for free. It is our Christmas present to y'all. Yes, and I've been in the South now for 8 years, so I get to say y'all. So anyway, download that, and when you first launch it, it'll say, hey, we got a bunch of new pictures for you. Go ahead and download that thing and just enjoy the photo reference, because it is a game changer. It really makes being a comic collector a hell of a lot more pleasant, and we expect to be doing that continuing forward. Now, I've been babbling for a while. I just want to make sure that we're still getting, not sure if we are attached live to the YouTube comments. I sure hope we are. I'm going to keep talking just in case we are. I got a note from StreamYard that it was having trouble connecting, so I'm just going to push on and hope for the best. But if anyone's watching this one, if you could just do me a quick ping in the comment, just give me a quick thumbs up, thumbs down as far as to whether things are working all right. I just want to make sure that my stream is working. Again, flying without a producer today, so if you got that would help me to know things are working properly. If not, then I guess I'll just watch this on the repeat and we'll take it from there. All right, so other things that are going on here. So obviously we shipped ComicBase 25.1, which is our big quarterly update, and 25.5 at the end of the whole thing. ComicBase 2025, by the way, if you guys are still rocking with the older version, say, well, what's different? Other than it's got this cool magician burning the lover's card on the cover of the whole thing. ComicBase 2025 was a big, they call it a quality of life version of ComicBase. Oh, looks like things are good. Excellent. So I got something from Dassinger. Oh, excellent. Thank you very much. All right. So the idea is, after a while, you can build in enough features so that, you've made life interesting for all the people who are really using everything. But if you don't spend the extra time to put that kind of fit and finish behind it and really just polish up the little rough edges of everything, you can make a product that is beyond a lot of people's capability. I mean, we are all stressed out in the modern world, and I feel like we have less and less time to take on new things. We all want to be able to work at an expert level on things, but we would like it to come easily because there's so many demands on our attention. And so I think there's a lot less tolerance for any kind of learning curve on almost anything, and that includes software. It probably especially includes software. But anyway, one of the things that we very much did with ComicBase 2025 is we looked at what are our top tech support problems. What are the things that people ever call us about, and whether it's moving ComicBase to a new machine or installing pictures or doing whatever, and what can we do to make that all better as much as is humanly possible, So we threw a lot of systems in place with ComicBase 2025 to try to address a lot of that stuff. And so we included all sorts of new features that really aren't there to make it so that you're doing bitch and new stuff so much. It's just that you're able to do the stuff much more simply. We added something called super copy and paste, so that if you have a lot of data you want to fill down to lots of different rows and things like that, you can literally just copy and slot it in like you would in, say, Excel, which for reasons that if you've ever done databases before, you'll realize this feature not found on pretty much any database you've ever worked in. But you can instantly fill in like whole ranges of artists and covers, and fill in cover prices and so forth, and you can do it just like copy, paste, and it does it all in once. We added some features to like automatically save your data up to the cloud, so that no matter when if your connection is anywhere near fast enough, if you've got good internet, and we're all starting to get better internet as things go along, that we can start using that one to keep your data safe without you having to think about it. I was just talking to a gentleman earlier on today who was like, yeah, okay, I'm updating my software. I had a hard drive, I was moving things over to it, but I'm not sure if I copied it over right, and I'm not sure if when I backed it up, and I'm not sure if I've got cloud, so forth. What we're trying to make it so the default is whenever you use ComicBase is your data is saved not just on your local machine, but also by default when you exit, if you've got a decent internet connection, up on something which isn't your computer at all, just in your cloud account. It does a number of nice things for you. If so, one, if you're using the professional and archive editions, so you've got the access to the mobile app, it automatically makes sure that your mobile app is synced up. That's pretty cool. It makes sure that no matter what happens to your computer, I mean, if a Cybertruck blows up outside of its front door, for instance, and manages to take your house with it, that you will have your data someplace other than where you are, and so you can always download that in the past. It also does things that are really nice, like making moving to a new computer much easier, so that when Santa got you a new computer for Christmas, and I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail later, it is as easy as just install the software, and it's going to be able to say, for an increasing number of us, again, this is dependent on your ability to have a fast internet. If you're out in the country and you have glacially slow internet, then this is not a feature you'll want to be using. But if you're, again, like more and more of us, where you've got decent internet going up and down, every time you exit your computer, it in the background will save it up to the cloud, so that when you want to go to a new computer, you can just install the software and say, hey, I got a cloud backup from like 15 minutes ago. You want me to just use that one? And you don't need to worry about all the transporting of files and things like that. So it's a really nice, comfortable way to work. And so we did a lot of stuff like that. There's, have a look at the What's New page at www.comicbase.com. Look under the products, go under What's New. And there's a lot that we did. So, I mean, I do encourage you to look at that one. But the main thing we want to do with this latest bunch of releases is we want to make it so it's easier to keep your collection together and to perform like an expert, that it's not harder. We didn't want to make you have to work harder to do anything. We want to make the whole thing as seamless as possible. And we expect to keep going forward that in the future. 25.5 was really the idea there is we're adding photo reference to everyone's thing, which is it's something that I think we're going to spend a fair amount of time in the next year talking about, because I think we're going to need to get the message out. Because if people have used ComicBase anytime in the last 15 years, I think they have a sense for what the different versions do, and now that information is out of date, and we're gonna have to spend some time getting that message out. So, by the way, if you have friends that are using either not using index cards or a spreadsheet or some other program to keep their stuff together, and you want to tell them about ComicBase, make sure, please, do us a favor, pass it along. But do pass along the, hey, by the way, did you know that you can try out even the free version, and now you get photo reference for everything, because it's a big deal, and especially in this crazy variant era of ours. So we want to get that out there, and then we'll be taking things from there. All right, so let's see what else we got here. OS, is any chance possible to add undo and redo feature? It's crazy. You remember I said that you notice that copy and paste are things that you never see a database do, especially across lots of fields at once. We're able to do that because we can buffer previous contents. Undo is tricky. I mean, it's so one thing about databases is that a lot of times the thing you're editing has spillover effects into other things. So here's a good example of one. Let's say I'm in the artist field and I say Mike Mignola drew a particular issue, right? And I change my mind and I say, oh no, sorry, I'm sorry, that was Arthur Adams, right? Well, when I typed Mike Mignola, I didn't just put Mike Mignola in a field. So it isn't just the field that you've got on there. It did a few other things. As I was typing, it, for instance, updated an index we keep in the background in the program of saying that, oh yeah, by the way, we also have to check and see if, have we got Mike Mignola listed as an artist in the field yet? If not, we're going to add him in on the whole thing. And so it updates a bunch of related tables as we're going. So undoing one set of data, easy enough. Undoing stuff that has spillover effects into other tables, ooh, super hard. Not saying impossible. Nothing is impossible, but I'm going to say not easy. So undo right now is basically currently limited to only the fields you have, that you before you leave the field. As soon as you go to the next field, it's kind of like, that was kind of like the end of the undo buffer for that one, which again, very typical for databases that even offer you that much undo. I'd like to see what could be done to make it more, but expect there to be limits, if nothing else, because it's, like I say, databases are tricky, and we do our best to make them not look tricky, but the underlying architecture we still have to deal with to make sure that we can roll things back. And it's a bigger ask than it seems like, but I'm not saying never. All right, other things going on here. Okay, I did want to show you a couple things about the content story of the last year, and I think I've got a slide. Let me see here. Yes, I do. Here we are. Let's look at this one right here. All right, so this is our year-end statistics 2024. I say this knowing, in a way, this is a way to give a pat on the back to both our editors and the people who do all our auction results, and every month every week put up the content updates and so forth. I do want to give them a big hand on the back for a lot of work, and I also really want to give a huge pat on the back to all of you who've submitted data, because even though we employ full-time people who are doing nothing but typing all day long to add new things to the database, we could not do what we do without all the help from all of you who are contributing things from the four corners of the earth that we would never otherwise see. I mean, there are variants we would never see. There are books and magazines and stuff that we would never know even the language to index them in, and you guys have done an amazing job. So in brief, in 2024, we added 1,805 new books, about 60,000 new comics. So this is a biggish number. I want to put this into a small amount of perspective. When we first started going, and we said, okay, because at a certain point we were in licensing talks with Bob Overstreet, and one of the questions that came up was, well, so Bob, how many items you got listed in your catalog? I mean, what are we bidding on? And the answer was, I don't know. It's for real. It was in a word processing file. He did not know. We were trying to put things into at least a spreadsheet, and then later on a database, and he did not know. So we basically had to go through and guesstimate what we were talking about. And in 1990, an Overstreet price guide was about 45,000 items. It's more now. The Overstreet guide has also gotten bigger, and they're also glossing over more. So when they say issues 2 through 16 of something, they're kind of saying 2 through 16 and the 47 associated variants that were part of that range and so forth. So you're implying a lot more than you're doing. But anyway, let's just talk for what we can. But we added about close to 1.5 1990 Overstreets to the database this year alone. So there's some sense of what we've been doing here. Other things that are going on. 13,553 new magazines, 260, called 250,000 new newspapers. That's I think just kind of at this point it feels like same old to me. It's like, wow, it's a lot of stuff, but it's hard for me to put a sexy number on that one. We added 73,940 new covers this year alone. The color I would put on that particular number is, if you guys remember, I was talking about when we first did the archive edition, which was the idea that we had this brand new technology called the DVD, and suddenly it held 5 or 6 times what a CD could hold, and so we could finally put our entire art library on the first time. Well, when we did our entire art library for ComicBase Archive Edition number 8, this is the one that came in the metal cases that we had produced at a phenomenal cost. I think they cost us like $12 each, but they they were these bookended cases, which they got their supplies. The engravers they used to engrave the metal, this was the vampire cover, if you remember that one, were the same ones that they used for engraving headstones in a mortuary. But anyway, these things, we saw them because it was like the most cool treatment we'd ever seen of a DVD package in our lives. And we thought, well, okay, obviously we're shooting for the moon here. Let's go talk to these guys. And they, if you have one of those old sets, especially if you have the gold edition, we had 25 copies of the gold edition of this one, which we gave to special friends and people who'd done us really solid favors back in the day. That one could be worth some money. But anyway, that one contained 55,000 images on the entire, I think it was 2 DVDs at that point. I'm not sure if they were dual layer by then, but I think we were on two DVDs. In the subsequent year, we managed to get that total all the way up to 80,000 for the number of pictures that were on ComicBase Archive Edition number 9. So that was the entire archive. That was everything that was on it, which is to say that's how much we've added to this year's archive. It's not how much is on the archive, it's how much we've added. A total number of images on the Archive Edition, it's just short of 1.1 million. I'm going to start saying that because saying 1,086,259 is way too much work. So 1.1 million is about the number that we're targeting right now. We're going to probably hit that number for real sometime. If things keep going the way they're going, sometime my guess would be February, unless something changes. Sometimes people, we get gifted a huge number of covers all at once, and sometimes it's a dry spell. You never know. But if we just kind of do things at our average couple thousand per week, I'd say by the end of March we're looking at having hit that 1.1 million mark. And then finally, if you count all the database price changes, content updates, the things that were one way and we added more stuff to them, or we fixed stuff, or we changed prices and so forth, there were 1.6 million such changes to the database, which I guess is just kind of a big way of saying that, if you're still using last year's version of the program, it's now 1.6 million changes out of date. So, update, right? Anyway, so that's the content story for 2024. And that's the last time I shall talk about that. Because, as they say, if you're resting on your laurels, you're sitting on the wrong end. Anyway, it's all about pushing forward to 2025. Now, I've been babbling for a while. Let me just double check, make sure the stream is still happening. It looks like, okay, we are good. All right. And by the way, please, if I'm going to get to some questions that people send in, but if you have special questions you'd like me to answer, please, just like Oro did there, put them to @ComicBase TV, and I will try to hit them. It helps me catch them out of the chat. All right. Other things that are going on in things. First of all, if you are checking the interim updates, so we did update number 2123. So if you guys are counting the full-on version numbers, version ComicBase 2025, version 25.5.0. 2123, build 2123 was released a few minutes before showtime. It's actually a slightly slimmed down installer. If you guys are watching this sort of things, we managed to basically coalesce a few libraries and stuff, and so it's faster to install and so forth by a bit. Updated the copyright to 2025, so now the copyright, the version, the model numbers, all 2025. This is actually, I gotta admit, after 33 years of doing ComicBase, getting to be one of the rituals I actually kind of enjoy is getting that cup of coffee in the morning right after New Year's Day and going to all your code bases and saying, all right, let's go to all the copyrights, change them from 2024 to 2025. And you want to look at them because you don't want to just look for 2024 or 2025 in the strings, because it turns out that randomly that can be like, I don't know, part of something else. So but anyway, it takes a couple minutes, but it's always one of those things that tells me, yep, here we are, and it's a new year. So that's one of my rituals, in case you care. All right, so what is ahead? All right, so number one, we talked about this a bit, and again, I don't want to talk about it more after this until you actually are just looking at it, because I hate when you talk too much about things before they happen. But there's a new iPhone app that's coming out. The was it the Android app is already version 3.0. Actually, I think it's like 3.0 point something else, 3.0 point something, But the getting it through the iStore was surprisingly difficult, and the frustration level, let's just say, got fairly high on both my side and on the side of the developer. But in the end of the day, we got the code. I checked the code out. It works. And I immediately found things that I wanted changed. So we've taken the decision to actually pull that one back from the Apple Store's consideration for the new version, because I want to change some navigational things that honestly just they weren't quite there. And I want you to be able to use the program and never think twice about it. And it just kind of does what it's meant to do without a lot of extra tinking around and wondering why I have to hit back here or whatever else. So we're taking that one in-house. It's one of the few bits of ComicBase things that we typically don't do ourselves. The mobile apps, it's always involved a specialized set of programming skill that it's been something that at the time when it was time to do it, we needed to rely on experts of other people, and so I appreciate them. They got us, they got us going on the whole thing. But over time, if you guys have ever dealt with outsourced projects, the frustration level then becomes, if you're the ones maintaining it and dealing with the customer support and trying to drive features and things like that, it's hard to keep a developer in the loop if you are managing them from half a world away, and keep them working as fast and as attentively to what you want done as you'd like. And eventually, especially if you got a chance to look at the answer key, which is what looking at the finished code is, eventually it is possible to bring that skill set in-house. So we've got the point now where we were editing the code ahead of the developer on the later stages of the iPhone's development. And so at that point, it was like when we're done with our checkpoint on this whole thing, we're taking this thing back and we're just going to drive it forward ourselves. So we will be doing that one, and I don't want to talk about it again until the next thing I want to be able to say to you is, and go ahead and download it right now from the iOS store, and I expect that will be quite shortly. And let's see here. 2123 loaded like greased lightning. Well, that's good. Okay, I'm glad. Okay, let's see. What else is going on? I did give you guys the commercial for. Oh, I'm sorry. Other things are coming very shortly in the new year. There will be some new integrations with Atomic Avenue. I'm not going to say too much more about this at the moment, other than sets are going to get better. They're going to, first of all, get handled better. Sets have been weird. I mean, just the idea is that if you want to sell, think about when you go and say, like, I want to buy what do you call it? Give Me Liberty, right? Say the limited series like that. A lot of times you go to a comic store and they say, okay, here's issues 1 through 4 of Give Me Liberty. I'm just going to stick them in a poly bag as one big thing, sell to you for $15. It'd normally be like $18, but I knocked a few bucks off. And I want to be able to sell it all at once, because I don't want to, I don't want to have issues 1, 2, and 4 of Give Me Liberty around the shop, because it's going to be hard to sell that. So we've had the ability to do that, to make sets in ComicBase, which then get posted to Atomic Avenue. That is a thing that happens, and it's never been, I think, particularly well implemented on Atomic Avenue's side in terms of making that part of the mainstream. You have to go to a special section to browse through sets and so forth. And then later on, when we added in some much sexier report handling for you can download your sales figures off Atomic Avenue, things like that, sets didn't kind of make the cut on that one. And so we want to, first of all, just as a way of kind of catching everything up for feature parity, we're going to be adding that back in very shortly. But then also look for some brand new changes that are going to make sets just a lot cooler on Atomic Avenue. And when that happens, you will know it, because it's kind of a big deal. All right. And let me see, what else are my notes of stuff. Oh, yeah, actually, this is where I wanted to ask you guys a lot of questions. So I'll admit, last year when we got started, because right around the start of the year, as I mentioned, we don't set a ship date until we are knowing that we are absolutely shipping this Friday. I mean, I'm not going to tell you the ship date until I know that there's no doubt in my mind we will be shipping on that date. But we have a general target in mind as to about kind of when in the year you'd like to ship. For instance, you don't want to ship too close to Black Friday. We've done that for a number of years, especially during COVID. And I'm going to tell you, that is no fun. It ruins your not only your whole summer, because you're starting, you're cranking like crazy on the whole thing, but it ruins everything up until you ship, because you can't think straight because it's so chaotic getting new releases out the door and getting the promotional material launched and handling all. I mean, getting a new version of ComicBase out is a big freaking deal. I mean, you're marching an army towards towards the shores in order to to invade a new country every time you try to do this. I would say it gets easier over the years, except that usually we're trying to do grander and grander things, and so it winds up being about as hard every single time for us. Anyway, there are certain times of year where you don't want to wreck your life too much, and one of them is I don't want to be wrecking my next Thanksgiving by shipping too late. So typically where we aim for, even though we haven't exhibited there for a couple of years, is we tend to try to think, late summer. Think somewhere around Comic-Con is about when you want the new version to show up. And there definitely will be a new version. It's I don't think that we're having any major surprises on that score. It'll probably be called ComicBase 2026, or at the very least, it'll have version number 26 is its part of its key part of its name. So these things are not major surprises. But I gotta say, last year we didn't know in January what the major features were going to be for ComicBase 2025. I mean, we had a big list that we compiled of things that we thought of that people had asked us for and so forth, and we were kind of throwing around the idea of like, what do you think about this one? What do you think about that one? How many people seem to care about this? And so you're trying to like prioritize where you put your efforts and so forth. But I gotta admit, if January 2nd, 2024, it was a lot more open about where we were going to go with the whole thing. January 2nd, 2025, I know exactly what we're doing in the next version. And I'm going to keep a lot of it as a surprise because it's huge. But I know exactly what we're doing, and I'm pretty cool. I'm pretty interested about this, and I think it's going to be something. It's going to take you to a level you haven't seen before, and I think you're going to be pretty shocked. So anyway, and I won't say anything more about that for just now. But I do have a couple asks. One is, first of all, I need to ask people, please post in the chat if you would. What are the favorite accounts you look at either on X or on Rumble or on YouTube? Who do you watch? Who do you like? Just that you recall looking at and saying, oh yeah, that guy had interesting comic news. Because very much interested in getting the word out about a number of things. And I want to know, first of all, I want to know for myself, because it's always interesting to follow comic news. I've got a few dozen accounts that I follow pretty much continually, but I actually feel under-newsed. It's hard finding a really good source these days because there isn't really a comic press like there used to be, of people that will give you kind of like a really good overview of what's going on in the whole industry, especially anyone who will give you stats. That part is we are really, really hurting for. But who do you guys like as far as where you get news from, or where you get opinion or else on pop culture and comic book stuff? So like I say, I'm interested both for myself and also because I would like to probably be looking to talk with those folks and see if there might be a channel that we can get the word out about ComicBase as the year goes forward. I do, for once, want to get much more systematized about our PR contacts and so forth like that, because it's a harder world than it was once. Once upon a time, you could put press out, releases out, and you could do things like that. We, again, in a world where there is no real comic press, there's a whole bunch of kind of things that kind of fly in, fly out of your attention span, and everyone's fighting for the same attention. I think we have to be more nimble than we've been in previous years in terms of getting the word out. So I want to know, who do you find the newsworthy source, and maybe that will give us some good ideas. So please put that in the chat, and if you are catching this one a little later, I'll put my info up here if I can hit the right button. Where are we? I think here we are. There we are. Please send me a note, pbickford@human-computing.com. Just send me a quick note. And just say, I dig this guy. This guy has, this guy has good commentary. This channel, was interesting. I found a great indie Kickstarter from that. Whatever the thing is, because looking for new sources. It's good to keep things fresh, especially in a new year. All right, and the next thing I have a question about is we've added some new features in ComicBase this last time out to enable you to tailor the sorts of media that are in your database a bit more. So, for instance, you can go under the File menu, go to File Types. File Tools, and there's an option there called Media Types in Database. And if you go over there, and actually this might be a handy thing for me to actually show. Let me see if I've got that one up on the demo machine. All right, so switching over control over here. Oh, by the way, in case you guys are wondering, this is now what the 1990 Spider-Man looks like in the free version. So very nice to see all this stuff filled in now. And I cannot believe how many freaking variants they put of issue number 1 of this 1990 comic book. Anyway, so, but if you guys go over here and go to the File menu and go down to File Tools, there's a option under here in ComicBase 2025 called Choose Media Types in Database. And if you do that, you can say, well, do you want to see books? You want to see comic books? You want to give magazines? You know, so forth. And you can choose this on a database by database level. It's not, as in previous versions, you could do this, but it would carry across all your databases. Here you can have like, hey, this is my database that has all the newspapers. This is my database that doesn't. You can do that separately. And also very helpfully is it gives you the actual definitions of what the different fields are. For instance, so if you're wondering, you know, hey, why is the official index of the Marvel, official history of the Marvel universe, why is that considered a magazine as opposed to being a comic book, even though it's comic book sized? We actually tell you, you know, as to why this is. And it basically has to do with the Guinness definitions of the different media and so forth. But anyway, we have this ability right now to take out media that you're not using. So for instance, a big one is if you don't collect newspapers, take out newspapers and it will drastically shrink the size of your database and speed your updates and so forth. And that's a very helpful thing. But I'm wondering if we could get this a little bit more specific without making it too complicated on people. Another thing that people sometimes do, and I gotta admit, this is not used by a lot of people, but the people who do it, it's very important to them, is you can say remove all mature readers material. So if you're setting up a database, you want to give it to your kid, you do not want to have anything controversial in there, especially people who are wearing far too little clothing. That is a thing you can definitely do. Some people have asked us, could I have the opposite version where all the things you've put red ribbons over, I could have it without the red ribbons? No, you can't, because we didn't keep these as layered files. But anyway, but one thing I'm curious about is just in terms of being able to channel the content that you're most interested in is, are you interested in, by any chance, in being able to specify that which regions of the world you collect? So I don't want to say country, because a lot of us feel like, I only collect U.S. comics if we're in the U.S. But do you? Do you sometimes collect Canadian comics? Sometimes does the odd, British comic make its way in there and so forth? And so I think if you had to go and enumerate all the countries of the world and say, show me, just countries from, Barbados and, just I'm trying to think of, there was a number of crazed attacks on New Year's Eve. And I'm trying to remember, there was one I just heard about like 45 minutes before showtime. It's like, what? It's a country that Montenegro. Somebody just shot up the place in Montenegro, and it's like, and I'm thinking, do I remember where Montenegro is? But anyway, but yes, you don't want to go through a list of all the 300 odd UN recognized countries of the world and say, is this one in or out and so forth. That's way too much work. But I am thinking, would it make sense to have regions of the world? So for instance, North America, Western Europe, and Australia being one group, for instance. Europe is, the rest of Europe being a group, India and China, for instance. Would it make sense to be able to say, put these in, put those out and so forth, and take out books that are not of interest to from me? So for instance, one thing that's going to come out is, as we move further and further into the world of comic books, and again, thank you to everyone who makes this possible, because me and my staff, between us all, we've got half a dozen languages under our belt, but that's nothing compared to all the languages the world speaks. So if something comes in with kanji characters and so forth, unfortunately I've lost the one person we had on staff who used to be able to read these things natively and tell me, oh yeah, it says this is the fantastic adventures of Princess Tea House or whatever the heck. It's some manga from China, Japan, so forth they were never given like really nice Englishish titles. They just exist only as kanji characters, and so it looks like glurp to most Western eyes. Same thing goes if it's in Hindi or Tagalog or whatever else. There's a number of script-based languages. I guess you could have ones that were in Arabic or Hebrew, where if you put them in the native language, if there was no Englishified version of it, it would just look like glurp. And I imagine, just like a lot of us get spam from foreign countries, it's like, I'm sorry, guy from China who's trying to sell me whatever you're trying to sell me, I cannot read your message. I'm never going to know what this is, and all I can do is hit block. Is there some interest as we get further into this process of being able to say what countries of the world, on some level, even if it's just these kind of regional blocks, you'd like to include or not include in a database? Because I think that's something that we might want to look into. You don't want to have too many edge conditions where, like, again, it's like, I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm pretty much an American comic book collector, but well, I do have a couple from Germany. I do have a whole ton from Great Britain, and so forth. You'd like to have those kind of all fit into one or two choices and not just be saying, oh no, oh yeah, it doesn't have this in it because that was actually published over in Canada, and I didn't add Canada as a publisher to my database. I don't want to start generating new tech support requests from the whole thing. So I'd like it if you could set one or two settings and get most of what you want in one fell go. But if that's something of interest, let me know. Let me see here. Steve Desdras, let me go ahead and do the smart thing and actually highlight the question. If you uncheck the mature box at the title level, will the update put the check back? Yes, it will, because there's thoughts in the database of who owns what. Let me see. Oh, is this not? Oh, that's weird. Huh. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay, I see it on. It's for a while there. I wasn't seeing it showing the question in the program, but I realized I'm looking at my program feed, not the one that you're seeing, which has that composited. Yeah. So there's fields that are considered just correct or not. As far as like if I were to take something like I don't know, 99 nudes or something like that, or the erotic work of Frank Frazetta or something like that, and if someone would say like, I don't find that particularly mature, I'm going to uncheck the box. If you've got the ability when you download corrections to say, do you want to allow corrections to the title? And if you have that set that, yes, I would like to allow corrections to the title, then we will correct that back saying, no, that is in fact mature. And if you disagree with us, the right thing to do is to uncheck it and then send it to us as a correction. And then our editors will once again look at it and decide, is it or isn't it? But if you allow us to make corrections to those fields, it's going to put our editorial judgment into place on that one as far as what the correct thing is. Same way, like if you say I'm going to allow creator corrections, and you said it's Mike Mignola writing, drawing this thing, and we said no, we looked at it, it's really Arthur Adams. You're going to get Arthur Adams as a correction. So that's the thing. Okay, so and by the way, if you guys are wondering where do we set mature on the whole thing, the ComicBase standards for mature tend to be very much is it basically R-rated in terms of extreme violence or naked stuff, and because we're Americans and because we have the American view of things, it probably in the grand world standard of these things, it takes more violence and less cleavage to qualify as R than it would in, say, France. But anyway, you got what you got, and that's we only have the one mature or not mature standard on this thing. I do realize that if we want to get really involved in the whole thing, there's whole rating systems and they're country specific, which we could apply to these things, and we might someday. But it's not something that's currently in the product. But it's a thing. All right, so we have a question here from Brian. Speaking of Spider-Man 1 and other books where they go back to press after the fact, first, second, third printing still a thing, or are they all just variants now? No, there's still a thing. One thing that I'll admit I'm fuzzy about why this decision was made this way, but I get it, and I respect the content guys on this one. Is So, for instance, you think about things like the image firsts, where they say at a copy of Witchblade, and so then they print a second printing and the third printing, and then they do like a 99-cent image first edition. That'd be like the fourth printing. So yes, that's still reprinting the same damn thing again and again. Lately, though, one thing that I'm like, I guess if I were voting on this one, I might have gone a different way. Is how do you treat the facsimile versions of different comics? What's that word? Comics, yes. So the idea is I'm not just going to print the thing again and admit that it's a later day and so forth. So if I'm going back to print Batman #1 again, or Spider-Man 129, or maybe Spider-Man 129, they're not just saying, oh yeah, okay, yeah, it's obviously it's a it's a higher cover price because stuff costs more these days and so forth, and we're going to change out the ads or whatever else. I mean, we're not just printing it again like the way you would normally do a second, third, fourth printing, but that we're actually going for it, and we're more or less counterfeiting it. We're going to, with the exception of the cover price on the front, we're going to print it as close to the way it was printed the very first time out, ads and the whole 9 yards. The decision was made on the editorial to treat those as variants as opposed to second, third, fourth, fifth printings. At some point, maybe they can comment on the exact features of why, but the decision was taken to treat those as variants as opposed to being like, say, a third printing or a fifth printing or whatever they are. But that might be what you're more or less thinking of. But yes, in general, if you do have like a trade, just a whatever. If I've got a copy of the latest hotness, and I go back and I sell out, and I go back to press and I do it again, like say Walking Dead #1 has had like 1 million printings at this point, or Dark Knight. Yes, it'll be just the printing field. It won't all be variants. Let me see here. Let's see. Thoughts on some kind of referral program to incentivate ComicBase aficionados to promote the product to comic buddies, cards, cash, a discount, badge, contributor points. Yeah, no, that's great thought. We've toyed with things over the years. I'll admit, I sometimes get this way where like I'll think through something, I'll get very excited about a certain concept of it, but as I get closer to pulling the trigger on it, I will start, the downsides become more and more salient to me, and I try to imagine maintaining the program over a very long period of time. And a lot of times I'll actually get pretty far down the line of certain ideas, and I'll get to the end, I'll kind of punk out. I'll be like, yeah, maybe not. I mean, unless I'm sure it's going to work. But one thing that we did think of at one point was a referral program, so you could get a referral code, and if you turn someone in, we'd store the referral code, and you'd get like 15% off or something like that on something. And we had a fair amount of the infrastructure kind of in place for doing that. This is about a decade ago, and I gotta admit, it's just toward the end, I felt hinky enough about it. I did not, but I like the idea. In general, I have no specific problem with it on the whole. Implementation is key as far as how you pull this stuff off. And the other thing is, I think you have to be very careful about this. And this is probably where I punked out on the whole thing. Is on one hand, look, I'm happy for every sale we make. I'm happy for a new customer. Well, I'm happy for every new customer we have. Sometimes, just like the customer will fire you, sometimes you will want to fire the customer. It does happen. We've been in business 33 years. A lot of water under the bridge. Anyway, but there, but yeah, for the most part, I'm happy every time someone comes through and tries out the product, especially if you love it. But I think the thing that keeps the whole thing running, because this is comics, this is not a massively lucrative industry by anyone will tell you this at any level of it, is the whole thing runs on love. I mean, at a fundamental level, is you got to love that you're doing comic books. You got to love that you're doing something you're genuinely excited about. And there's a weird thing about psychology, is that the second you give people money for something, they will change the idea of why they're doing it. Which, I mean, it can be bad. It can be good. It can be bad. It can be necessary. But it becomes the reason. And when so much of what we're doing is relying on just kind of like that, hey, I want to contribute to the whole thing. It's it's just like, oh yeah, I had these weird Spanish comic books that I picked up on my vacation, and I want to add them in, and so let me give them to you. As soon as you start attaching money to all that stuff, it changes the motives in a way that kind of, I don't know, it's insidious, and so I think you have to be very careful. I mean, even if the money was everywhere and we could hand it out like candy, which obviously we can't, is that it changes how it feels to contribute. Contributor points and bragging, I think, very much a big fan of, because then it's sort of like, well, hey, who's done the most? I participate in any number of technical boards. Excuse me. Once upon a time, I had a cough button, which I could, when I need to do something like that, I could just hit the button and it would go mute. I do not have that on my control right now. I need to look at that in the next year. But for instance, I contribute to a number of technical boards where people be like, hey, how do you, do some incredibly complicated programming thing? And if I actually happen to know the answer to it, you'll take a few minutes out of your time, you'll document it. Okay, well, because you think, hey, I was once that guy on something else, and here you kind of just paying it forward into the whole community. And that gets recognized on boards with things like, oh yeah, someone gave you a +1. It's like, yeah, it was a good solution, Bickford. So we're, thank you on that one, good job. Or if I sucked and I had buggy code that I submitted as my sample or something like that, I'd be like, -1, he's the worst guy ever. And so you kind of have a reputational thing, and it's kind of cool rising up the reputational ranks in some of this stuff. And there are guys who have apparently far more time on their hands than me, and probably just smarter, who have like thousands and thousands of reputation points on things like Stack Overflow, which will be, I don't know how you do it unless you're retired and all you do is answer technical questions all day, or you're a former Microsoft engineer who wrote the stuff in the first place and you're just a genius. But anyway, that thing I think works. I think you have, like I say, I think you have to be very careful about the incentives, because you want to make it so it's incenting, it's fun, it feels good, but you don't wreck the fundamental spirit that keeps it all going. So let me think on it. But it's a great thing to bring up. I very much appreciate that. All right, what else we got going on here? Foreign comic books more accessible. Got that. And D. Craven says, I listen to Renovation on iTunes. Renovations, YouTube. Okay. Is Renovation, is a channel name? Just if you could quickly in the chat, if you could just give me like an exact like @ name on the whole thing, just to make sure. All right. And Brian Price said, yeah, same thing about keep the money, about stick with the bragging points. Yeah, it's just a thing. I mean, like I say, it just kind of keeps the whole thing running. Oh my God, I've been babbling a long time. Okay. Sorry. I just caught the time on the whole thing. And all right. So all right, I think some of these tech tips, I'm going to wait till next year if I haven't hit them already. Let's see if there's anything that's super, super important. I'm going to feel terrible if I don't get to you today. I think there's nothing that can't wait until next week in terms of the tech tips, but we got some good ones coming up, so something to watch for next time. Anyway, so yeah, but please do, if you're catching this on any level, do put your notes into the chat there about who you listen to, who are some cool people with good podcasts, stuff like that. Really want to know. As someone put it, and I got a chance. Oh, by the way, I'm going to give one kind of like New Year's Eve primer pitch for something that I had a real change of heart on. It's and so I find it interesting. So I hope maybe you guys will find it interesting too. Is I finally, after all this time, so when I'm working, you can't see it, because the camera is here pointing at me like that. But over to my left is, on the far office wall, as you go down. Is I keep a TV going, because you typically work on my own during the day. There's a lot of Slacks and messages coming through and emails and everything else like that. But for the most part, if you're a programmer, you work in your own head. And so it's nice to hear other human voices throughout the day. And so the thing that's going on through the day, if I'm not listening to music, if I'm in a state where I'm doing work that's distractible. So in other words, I'm I don't know, getting packages together, or just doing something with my hands, or bagging and boarding comics, whatever the heck the thing is. But if it's something where I can afford to have my attention wander a bit, a lot of times, like when you're working with computers, there's like compile time, where like you kick off a build and you basically need to zone out for about 2.5 minutes while it does it. That stuff will make you crazy if there isn't something else going on in the background. So the thing I have going on in the background for my life most of the time is I have YouTube channels that I like, are just running around playing on the device, which isn't the one right in front of my screen. It's the screen that's off 90 degrees out of my line of sight. So I'm more or less, listening to it. Occasionally, if I'm, again, bagging boring comic books, I'll just swivel around and look at it. But it's that kind of content. So all this time, and I've been doing this for, 7-8 years now? I've been in Tennessee, that I've had the setup. I've been doing this, and I've been putting up with the YouTube commercials, which is to say about every 6 minutes, I'm going to get some incredibly incessant thing will come on, which will either become the kind of thing that you can ignore for a couple minutes, a couple seconds, and it'll just go back to whatever you were kind of listening to, or you will kind of learn to reflexively reach down for the remote control that's sitting there by my left hand, point it over there on the skip button, and hit to skip past whatever the heck annoying thing they've got going. And during the elections in particular, this was absolutely crazy making, because it was every 2 seconds someone was coming on there and jabbering about something that just makes you want to scream. So anyway, I've been doing this for 8 years, and the reason I did this, and I'm telling myself this, and I'm saying this on YouTube's channel. Again, thank you, YouTube. You're an amazing channel, but you're owned by Google, and Google has done a lot in recent years to burn through the crazy goodwill that they built up in the 90s for providing the world's best search engine for free, and then Gmail, one of the best email programs for free, and then so many other things like that. And then one day they went from don't be evil, and they're all hippy dippy idealistic and stuff. They said there's money in them their hills, and ads became everything. And then it became, how do we get it so that if we're not selling these people ads, we're basically monetizing every damn keystroke, every glance, everything that they hesitate on, and selling it off to something and compiling what they actually. If you guys ever want to look on YouTube for a very scary document, Google up YouTube and the Selfish Ledger. I'm sorry, not Google, but Google and the Selfish Ledger. It's basically, it's from an internal presentation at Google about, like, oh yeah, we have X number of terabytes more or less stored on every man, woman, and child on the face of the planet, of every damn thing they're thinking of doing, and we know them better than they know them, and it's just absolutely terrifying. I got to the point where, honestly, I do not want to feed the beast. And so while we used to spend a great deal of money on Google ads and things like that, I was like, you know what? We're not doing this anymore, because you don't want to build the tomorrow you don't want. Well, YouTube, I think, I'm not sure if it was always, but it was quickly, upon being started, quickly acquired by Google. And so I've always had this kind of very short-ranged attitude about, I don't want to feed the beast, and so I guess I'm not going to pay Google to get rid of the ads. And I know that this is being stupid on one level, because I'm sitting there going like, well, dude, what's your time worth, man? It's like, is it worth $10 a month to not listen to ads? To not be sitting there every 6 minutes, wanting to flinch and click the next button? And of course it is. It's 33 cents a day? That's ridiculous. Of course you'd pay, a quarter and a dime to not have that in your life. But I didn't want to pay it to Google. And so I was very, very stubborn about this for years. And then one day it occurred to me, and it's funny because it would occur to me in the context of, well, is there another way to go on this thing? Because the ads are crazy. They're crazy. They're distracting. They're a time suck. I don't want them in my life. What do people do? And it turns out there's a number of professional ad blocking sites out there that you can put up. It's easier to do if you're viewing this stuff on your computer, but they will basically hack on your Google account and cause page launches to happen multiple times, and all sorts of hacky things to make it so that when the ad starts to want to play, it gets bypassed in different ways. And of course, they want to charge you $3-4 a month for their service, but they say, hey, but look, it's a lot cheaper than YouTube Premium, right? That they're like 3-4 times the cost. And so I was considering, this whole dilemma this new year. I thought, what things do you want to do differently in 2025? And I'm thinking, well, one thing I don't want to do is listen to ads all damn day, but do I want to pay another hacky service to do weird things in order to take the ads away? And then I realized, well, oh, wait a minute, Bickford, all the stuff you're watching is stuff where people have contributed their time to create amazing things that you learn from. I mean, whether it's people teaching how to fix cars, or do amazing woodworking, or tech stuff, or comic commentary, whatever the stuff. This is all people like me right now who are getting monetized and earning little pennies on on per thousand of views to try to make a little bit of a living, get some kind of financial reward back for all this time and all this effort. And if you don't pay YouTube, you don't pay them. So yeah, you could pay the ad block guys, but then that means these guys didn't get the ad run, and that means the creator didn't get the ad credit. And so if I'm paying these guys to get rid of the ads, I guess I didn't pay Google, but I also ripped off the creator. And so I realized, oh well, that's my choice. It's kind of like I can hate the record companies, and anyone who's been a musician or has worked with record companies probably does hate the record companies. You sit there and say, like, wow, you treat artists like garbage, and so one of the things that I remember having this discussion, back in like 1985 or something with my little brother, where he's sitting there going, it's like, yeah, man, I never buy records because, like, Johnny Rotten only gets like $1. If you buy a whole, $8 album or something, or a $13 CD, he only makes like $1. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, but if you just tape the album off someone, then he doesn't get the buck. It's like, yeah, it's kind of a shame that he gets so little for his own work. But if you don't pay for it, then he gets nothing at all. I mean, I remember at some point telling my little brother, it's like, for God's sake, Johnny Rotten has brought so much vitriol and spite and hate to our lives and gotten us through so many tough times. Buy him a freaking pint for once. It's like least you can do. So so this is something I've decided to do in the new year, is I'm actually paying for a YouTube Prime. And I gotta say, I kicked it on. It has a free 30-day demo. I've always held off doing the free X-Day demo because, as like everyone knows, once you do the demo, you're just going to let things run and you'll just be paying it out and you'll forget to, cancel and whatnot. But I got to say, after using this thing for about 3-4 days now, I'm losing the flinch instinct. And you realize, wait, my thoughts are rolling in continuous blocks now. And like, they don't get interrupted every 6 minutes by some absolutely spurious garbage that you then have to stop what you're doing, grab a remote control and go, ugh. But just that little act takes you out of whatever flow state you were in for at least half a minute. And I'm going to say, you know what? If I think this is one that I was just thinking about wrong. No, Google, look, I respect that I got to pay for your servers. I respect that what you do costs money. I respect, nothing in life is free. I also wish you would stop doing some of the things you are doing. If there was a way to get you to do that and still get the creators that I like paid, I would be doing that, but that is not amongst my options on the table. So barring all that, yes, I think the least bad option on the whole thing is either tolerate the ads, which I do find intolerable, or pay for YouTube Prime. And like I say, that's what I did. And I actually bought the family plan, and so my family is rocking on that one right now. So I'm gonna say that is an interesting thing, and it's worth considering it if you are also a YouTube watching person in your life. I gotta say, having now tried it for a little bit, it is dramatically, and I do mean dramatically, better. So anyway, that's my new thing. So that's about it. Hey to everyone who's shown up now, but I think that will do it. All right, guys, you guys take care. I will see you all on the next one, and you have a terrific, terrific New Year's. Bye-bye.